Hello and welcome to another video, and in this one I want to talk about energy weapons and balance. Now in the skill tree Q&A, the very last question, they were asked, if the skill tree system is not meant to balance clan and IS, what's the balance process going forward? And they answered that June will see an extensive balance pass performed on energy weapons. And then it's going to touch nearly every weapon in the lineup, and their goal is to have better weapon role definition between the different weapon types, and have a heavy focus on better baseline balance between IS and clan energy weapons. So what I wanted to do in this video is go over what I think are the major issues between IS and clan weapons, and also what I would do to have better role differentiation between the different types. So we're going to pop over here to the spreadsheet warrior, and we have all of the energy weapons currently in the game, along with the proposed Civil War tech. So this is just what I believe the Civil War tech will come in as with stats. I'm not really going to be talking about them very much here because they are unknown, but these are the Sarna stats translated to MechWarrior Online ranges and such like that. But let's go over what I think are the two major issues between clan and IS energy weapons. That's duration of the beam and the range of the weapon. If we look at the Inner Sphere Large Pulse Laser, this is the worst contender when it comes to just a completely wrong duration for a weapon. We have 0.67 duration for 11 damage, and that means if they continued doing damage at that rate for an entire second, it would do 16.4 damage. Comparatively to the clan Large Pulse Laser, it would only do 11.6. It's so much more damage per second, and it's like so short, it's even hard to torso twist away. If I remember correctly, might need some Googling to confirm this, but like an average person's reaction rate is something like 0.4 to 0.5 seconds, when the majority of your damage is going to be already on target before the opponent can even register that they need to rotate their torso. It might as well be up front. This might as well be 0.1 and just call it a pinpoint weapon, because the majority of damage is going into one location. If it spreads, it's more of the fault of the shooter not having a steady hand than it is the fault of the person being shot twisting well. So that's one major issue, that the Inner Sphere stuff has far too low duration. When we come over to the clan stuff, they have far too high a range. If we look at some of their stuff, the clan ER Large Laser has 740 for its optimal range. The equivalency in the IS, the exact same type of laser in ER Large, has only 675. So the clan can literally sit back and just outrange an Inner Sphere with impunity. The Inner Sphere cannot respond appropriately at that range. Now, this is one of the reasons why the sort of plus 10% laser energy weapon range quirk is so ubiquitous on the Inner Sphere side. There's a lot of that little bit of increasing energy range for the Inner Sphere, and it's to counter this issue. However, what I would like to see is basically all that increasing range quirkiness go away, and we're going to change these base values so that they are closer to each other and they are better balanced. But with those two main points in mind, let's pop over here to Proposed Weapon Changes tab. Now this is what I would do to these particular weapon systems. Things shaded in light red here have been nerfed, and things shaded in light green have been buffed. So let's go over the changes here. Starting off again with duration, we can see that I've nerfed the duration of basically all of the pulse lasers on the Inner Sphere side. They're far too short. We brought the large pulse from 0.67 to 0.9. It's dramatic buff, but it's needed. This 12.2 damage per duration is way more manageable, and we've dropped the clan duration for their large pulse, down a little bit, so it's 11.4. The IS still are they still win in terms of the amount of damage per duration they're doing. They still have a shorter duration. However, it's not so obscene. And the same thing across the board with medium pulse and the small pulse. I left the standard lasers alone, and we don't know what the durations are going to be for the ER lasers. For the clans, we have slight duration reductions for the regular ER smalls, mediums, and ER larges. The ER large, a very, very large duration reduction from 1.5 seconds. Practically a lightsaber, so unwieldy, down to 1.3. And you could even maybe take this a little bit further, down to like 1.25. But there's going to be people who do the skill tree and stuff like that that'll get down to that level, so I think we can leave it at a little bit higher base value and allow people to spec into energy weapons if they want to have that sort of 1.25-ish duration for their ER larges. But you may say, but then just you're buffing the clan weapons so much here, but I'm not. What we're going to do is we're going to drop clan weapons across the board by 1 damage for each of their laser beams. So the smalls goes from 5 to 4, the mediums go from 7 to 6, and so on, all the way down. Now, they're still stronger than the IS counterparts. They're +1 damage compared to their inner sphere counterparts. So small pulse laser here is 5, small pulse laser here is 4. That gives them it's a rule that they're following. The clan version is +1 damage, and it's a little bit higher, a little bit longer duration, and it works out in the end that these have a very, very similar damage per durations, with the inner sphere winning for the majority of it. So we have 12.2 compared to 11.4. The medium pulse 8.2 for the clans is superseded by the 8.6 for the inner sphere. So still the inner sphere is getting a little bit better damage duration, but it's not so obscene. But then for range, what we've done is we have boosted range across pretty much all of the inner sphere lasers. We're trying to bring them up so that they can properly interact with the clan laser technology. But what we've done is we've lowered clan ranges as well, but primarily optimal ranges. And this is sort of another one of those rules. Like, clan weapons are +1 damage compared to the inner sphere counterpart. ER weapons now have 50% increase for their max range compared to their optimal, where regular weapons have 100%. So, for example, we have the large laser here and the ER large laser. The large laser has a 450 optimal range and a 900 maximum range, which is really simple, 450 times 2. However, for the ER laser, we have a 600 meter optimal and a 900 meter maximum. It's the exact same maximum range, exactly the same. So that means that if you have a large laser and they have an ER large laser, and you're both at like 890 meters, you can't outrange each other. You never have that situation where you're like, damn it, he's completely outranging me and I'll never, ever, ever be able to hit him back simply because he's too far away. We also look down here at the clans. They have the exact same range for their ER tech now, 600 and 900, same as the IS. That way we can get rid of that energy range boost that are quirk that are on mechs, and we can just have it so that if people want to boost it, they go into the skill tree and not pick particular mechs that make it so that they have like 2-kilometer range ER large lasers. That's just silly. However, the ER still have a benefit. We see that the optimal is 450 compared to 600. So that means anything from 450 to 900, the ER does more damage, but it's not going to be completely outranged. So we get rid of this super long range issue when it deals with lasers, but we also maintain the flavor of ER lasers having a better optimal. So you can do better damage in that bracket of 450 to 600 when it comes to large lasers. So that's the new rule I would come up with. It applies for all inner sphere and clan ER technology, so the ER lasers for IS, as well as the ER PPC for IS, and then all clan weaponry, so the ERs, but then also their pulse lasers and maybe their heavy lasers. Not exactly sure what their ranges and durations and stuff are going to be, so we'll save the judgment for them, but also the clan ER PPC. So we can see that we've brought these two weapon systems closer together. We're not going to have these huge range benefits on the clan side compared to the inner sphere side, and we're not going to have these huge duration benefits on the inner sphere side compared to the clan side. And if you want to accentuate your particular type of weaponry, well, you can go and get your laser duration in the skill tree in order to get your large pulse laser back to where they were before, with a minus to its duration. Or if you want to get your large laser really long duration, really long range for the clans, well, you can get that by going to the skill tree and getting the 15% additional range. When it comes to PPCs, what I would do is we're going to remove the splash damage from the clan ER PPC, because we need to get things more concise and easier to explain to a new person. We're not going to tell a new person, hey, you know that they have all these different PPCs, considering the snub nose is coming in as well. This is another rule. The clan one does splash damage, the IS one doesn't, but one of them has a minimum range and one of them doesn't, and then the snub nose is coming in and that has a different minimum range thing, and it's all confusing. There's so many rules that are revolved around the PPCs. So I propose just making them either all splash or no splash, and just getting rid of that idea that the ER PPC splashes. So either we take the ER PPC down from 15 total damage to 13 direct. So it's hitting for 13 directly into that single compartment, and we leave its heat where it is. So before we would do 15 splash, it's now losing 2 damage, but it's maintaining the same heat. If not, even put this up to 15 heat, I wouldn't care. And we lower its maximum range to 1215 from 1600 or wherever it was. For the IS ER PPC, we doesn't have splash before, but it was the same amount of damage for a lot more heat for just a little bit of range. It wasn't really that worthwhile. So we're just going to buff its damage. 12 damage for 13.5 heat, the exact same range profile, the 810 optimal to 1215 maximal as the ER PPC, as the clan ER PPC. Good stuff. We pretty much made those weapons identical across the board, and then for the regular PPC, not really changing much with this, leaving it at 540. You might even want to buff this a little bit if you wanted to. Maybe 600 so that it's closer to 1200, which would put it closer to its ER counterpart. But I would do something about the minimum range on this. I would honestly remove it. Like, the benefit of what the snub nose is going to be, currently is going to be the minimum range being removed. However, I think the real benefit of the snub nose is going to be 2 slots. I think that is going to be the big benefit. The snub nose is the center torso energy weapon. That's why it's going to be powerful. I think that is a good enough reason. We don't need to have that snub nose be like, well, yeah, but you have to take the snub nose if you don't want a minimum range. Like, so many times there's been like, oh, it's a person with PPCs. I'll just get within 90 and they can't do shit to me. It's so painful when that occurs. It's still freaking lightning beams that they're throwing at you. Like, should do some damage. But anyway, that's what I would do for the current energy weapons without actually changing the functionality of many of these weapons to do really different things. But that's what I want to talk about right now. Now, in order to differentiate these things better from each other, I think we have 2 different types of energy weapons now. We have lasers, which is a weapon that does damage over a duration, which includes both regular lasers and pulse lasers. And then we have slug type projectile weapons, the PPCs, that do damage up front with a projectile. Now they're completely different playstyles, and that's really cool and awesome, but I think we need a third. We need a brawler weapon. And what I think we need to do is take all the pulse lasers, take their damage, say divided by 5, divided by 6 sort of thing, take their heat and do the exact same thing, take their cooldown and do the exact same thing, and take their duration and doing the exact same thing. So what you do is you make laser machine guns. Yes, that's what I want. Laser machine guns. I want the these are the type of lasers that you would see in sort of the MechWarrior 4, where a regular laser would be a long recycle, high up front weapon. The pulse lasers would be very fast recycling, low damage weapons. The benefit of the pulse lasers is that they were heat efficient, high DPS. So while you did have the bad part is that you always had to be on target, you always had to be facing your opponent, you could rip them to shreds if you wanted to. And that's something we don't have with lasers. We don't have a DPS laser. We're gonna have that in the ballistics with rotaries. We have good DPS stuff in the missiles with, like, LRMs are good DPS. Like, they may not be the best weapon to impact, but they're just really good DPS if you're constantly hitting. We need that for energy weapons, and that's what I'd like to see. Change these pulse lasers from just being regular old lasers, just a little bit shorter duration. Make them actually interesting and different, new and cool. Make them into laser machine guns. But anyway, that's the idea I have for rebalancing and redesigning energy weapons. I'd love to hear what your thoughts on it, so put those in the comments below. I'll be reading a whole bunch of them. And thanks for watching, and good hunting.